I'm fine, Jamie. How are you?
I'm very good. I appreciate you giving me time today. It's a great pleasure to have an opportunity to speak to you, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
I saw the movie, and I liked it very much. I thought it had a very strong vision.
The vision is that it's a post-apocalyptic movie, and the vision is that it's the corporate heads that have brought the world to that standstill, and the heroes of the culture are the bounty killers that take them down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great premise. Did you see it on a big screen or on video? On digital, on a DVD.
I saw it at home on DVD. That's where I saw it.
Oh, because it's going to be released on September 6th, but it's also same day on demand. But I've seen them in both contexts. It's a big movie. I really recommend a theater.
Yeah.
For the scope of it. I mean, they're big. There's a lot of stuff going on in the scenes. It's big. It's animated and live action. It's not gratuitous action. I mean, all the action that takes place, all the shooting and everything, and the martial arts and stuff, it's all in the context of developing the character or the story.
I think so too. When you were approached about the movie, did you get a sense of the visual direction? I mean, you had a very firm idea.
Yeah, I saw a short that Henry made based on his graphic novel. That was amazing and blew me away. And then I met with Henry and Christian, and just a love fest started immediately. So I was on board for anything they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
I was glad there was a role for me.
So tell me, how long did it take to shoot your portion of it?
Oh, I was only on it for a few days. But, they're good friends of mine, and I see them all the time, so I feel like I've been involved the whole time.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'm fascinated by, because obviously all independent movies, you feel like you wish you had more time because it's such a race against the clock. But tell me, what's it like to have to kind of firmly establish a character in such a short amount of time? Is that a big challenge?
You know what? That's a really interesting question, because I do think that I think that supporting characters or cameo characters, just from my own point of view, you can't. I mean, they have to be clearer, they have to be crisper, they have to be larger, because you have a short amount of time to establish who that person is and what's going on. So there has to be more of a delineation than with a character that develops over time. You don't want to go changing the silhouette that you have or the look that you have, because that's just going to beg the question from the audience of like, who is that? Why did they change? Whereas if you were developing a character's arc over a long period of time, you'd have more leeway. To my way of thinking.
Right.
I think it's like I come from a musical background. I started out as a singer, so I think it's kind of like a brief solo that has to have impact, or else it shouldn't be in there.
Absolutely.
It has to be harmonious.
So when you're building Lucille, tell me what kind of thinking went into, for instance, the look of the character.
Unlike other stuff I've done, there was a physicality to her, because it was post-apocalyptic. It was set in the future. Of course, I wanted to figure out what she looked like. I kind of went for a steampunk thing, but I found that kind of blanking out my face with white and painting on eyebrows and lips and things like that, that helped me. And doing stuff to my hair, that helped me. And the stuff that I wore, I mean, that's what brought it to life.
Mm-hmm.
It's futuristic. You got to kind of come up with something. The relationship with Christian was very natural, because we kind of immediately fell into. I felt very maternal toward her, very protective, and very much like a mentor, and someone who cared about her for real. So that wasn't difficult to play.
Does it feel creatively? Does it feel kind of freeing when you're working in a genre like this?
I think what's freeing about this is kind of something that I've learned that is freeing, period, which is the use of digital cameras. This was shot on a red camera. It's digital. There's a lot of freedom in that, and that you're not, lighting setups don't take as long. You don't feel the pressure of the preciousness of the film itself. You can just keep going and going and going. You don't have to worry so much about matching, because you know that things can evolve, because you're not bound by the economic pressure of film, of using 35 millimeter film. And there's a certain freedom. There's a certain certain freedom for an actor who's doing a digital film.
Well, and plus you could establish kind of a consistency of performance because it's not so constantly a stop and start kind of situation, right?
Well, it can be a stop and start situation, but it also, I mean, with 35 millimeter film, you really need to light things well, I mean, and digital cameras in general can capture light in a different way. They kind of, to my way of thinking, they almost see too much. But there's just a bit more freedom as far as what you're doing. Plus, it's just the cameras aren't so omnipresent the way that they are in with 35 millimeter film. So the scene itself kind of is larger than the physical cameras.
Right. But I'm so fascinated by the craft of acting. Was it a big learning curve to feel comfortable with the camera when you first started?
Initially, the first digital film I did was actually a wonderful film written and directed by Bruce Wagner, who's a brilliant novelist, and it was called Women in Film. And I remember when I first started, the first couple of days, I went, huh? Because the camera was so teeny, and we were using natural light, and I would just keep going forever. There was no cut, no pressure on it. You didn't have to worry about matching because he could shoot more and do all that. And it was a little discombobulating at first because I really learned my craft as an actor in front of film cameras, on film sets without an audience. Started out as a singer, so I'd sung, in bars, and I was in a repertory company and performed in that context, and I did a Broadway show, but I really, that wasn't my love. My love was singing. And once I realized the fluidity that could be achieved with a digital camera, I got into it. But that was back. That was in 2000. In the year 2000, it was called Women in Film.
So that was in the very early stages of the technology. Yeah.
Tony Kaye in American History X was the cinematographer and the camera operator, and he used the camera in a way that people use digital cameras, meaning that he had it on his shoulder, he could shoot on the fly, he could shoot whatever he wanted to because he knew how to. So, the thing is about digital cameras, kind of you can put that in anybody's hand and they can capture an image. And Tony had that facility with a film camera that he could do the same thing that, people now can do with digital cameras.
You've been performing for so long. Do you still get turned on or challenged by it in the same way that you did when you first started?
Well, I have a different perspective now because I'm a mom, and when I had my kids 12 years ago, became a single mom when they were about 3, I kind of changed my perspective on where I could work. I obviously can't take off for months at a time and go away, and because my real thing is being an available parent, and so it's altered things.